The steel door explodes inward at 10:47 p.m. on a Thursday night in December. Smoke pours through the breach like liquid shadow swallowing the emergency light's crimson pulse. Six figures in tactical black urge through the opening, their boots hammering against marble. In practiced unison, their weapon-mounted flashlights cutting white scars through the haze. Six barrels lock onto a single man. He stands in the center of the 27th floor hallway wearing the navy blue uniform of a building security guard, the cheap polyester kind, with the company logo stitched above the left pocket. The fabric is torn at the shoulder. Dust coats his face. In his right hand, a pistol hangs at his side muzzle, pointed toward the floor. Behind him, pressed against the wall, like they're trying to melt into the concrete, a woman clutches a small child. The girl's face is buried in her mother's chest, her tiny hands fisted in expensive silk. The woman's eyes are wide, her mascara streaked her breath, coming in shallow gasps that fog in the climate-controlled air. The SWAT commander's voice tears through the chaos. Drop the weapon hands where we can see them. The man in the security uniform doesn't flinch. His eyes, gray-blue, steady as stone, sweep across the six operators arrayed before him. He catalogs their positions in a fraction of a heartbeat. Two on the left tight formation covering angles. Two on the right slightly staggered. Two center the commander among them. Classic V-shaped assault stack. Then he does something that defies every protocol, every survival instinct, every logical response to having six firearms aimed at his center mass. He turns his back to them. Slowly, deliberately, each movement telegraphs so there can be no misunderstanding. He rotates until he faces the woman and child. His arms spread wide, his body becoming a shield of flesh and bone between the guns and the innocents behind him. Four words spoken with the calm of a man ordering coffee. Stand behind me. The woman obeys without question. She pulls the sobbing girl closer and presses herself into the shadow of his back, her designer heels scraping against the floor as she retreats. The SWAT team doesn't fire. They've been trained to recognize anomalies, situations that don't match the pattern. And this man turning away from the threat to protect potential hostages doesn't match any pattern they know. The commander advances through the dissipating smoke, his rifle still raised, his finger indexed along the trigger guard. He's a weathered 44 with salt and pepper hair and a scar running down his left jaw, the kind of mark that comes from being too close to something that explodes. His eyes narrow as he studies the security guard's posture. The squared shoulders, the balanced stance, the way the man holds his weapon low and safe, finger nowhere near the trigger. Then he sees the wrist. The guard's sleeve has ridden up, exposing a patch of skin between glove and cuff. They're pale against the surrounding flesh. A circular scar gleams under the emergency lights. Smooth, perfectly round. The diameter of a quarter. The commander knows that scar. He bandaged the wound that created it 7 years ago in a bombed-out building in Mosul while insurgent fire chewed the walls above their heads. His voice drops to something barely above a whisper. Garrett. The security guard doesn't turn. His arms remain spread, his body still positioned between the operators and the civilians, but his voice carries clearly through the smoke-heavy air. Nathan, 3 seconds of silence. In combat, 3 seconds is an eternity, long enough to reload, long enough to die, long enough for the entire world to change. Then Nathan Caldwell, commander of the Chicago Police Department's elite SWAT unit, does something he hasn't done in civilian clothes in over a decade. He snaps to attention, his heels clicking together, his right hand rising to his temple in a crisp military salute. His team freezes. You don't salute civilians. You certainly don't salute armed suspects. Caldwell's voice carries the weight of old wars and older debts. Captain Cole, I thought you were dead, sir. The security guard finally turns. The pistol in his hand lowers to the floor, and he straightens to his full height, returning the salute with the practiced precision of muscle memory that never truly fades. Still breathing, Caldwell. Still saving people who don't know they need saving. To understand why that salute matters, why it changes everything, you have to go back 6 hours to when the man called Garrett Cole was still invisible. The alarm on the nightstand reads 4:30 p.m. when his eyes open. No gradual awakening, no muzzy transition from sleep to consciousness. One moment he's under, the next, he's fully alert, his body cataloging the details of his environment before his conscious mind catches up. The water stain on the ceiling, shaped like the state of Texas. The distant rumble of the L train 3 blocks north, running 2 minutes late. the faint scent of cinnamon drifting from the apartment next door where Mrs. Whitmore is starting her evening baking. Garrett Cole lies still for exactly 5 seconds, letting his heart rate settle, letting the adrenaline that still kicks in every time he wakes drain back into whatever reservoir his body keeps it in. 3 years since he left the service. 3 years since he hung up his uniform and his clearances and his entire identity. 3 years and he still wakes like a man expecting contact. The apartment is small and clean and utterly devoid of personality. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a galley kitchen, opening onto a living area barely large enough for a second-hand couch and a coffee table scarred by decades of previous owners. The furniture came from Goodwill. The appliances came with the lease. Nothing on the walls except a calendar from the local hardware store, each day's square empty of appointments or obligations. Not quite nothing. On the refrigerator door, held up by a magnet shaped like the Chicago skyline, a dozen drawings in crayon and marker create the only splash of color in the entire space. Houses and trees and stick figures holding hands. A yellow sun with a smiley face. 2 people, one tall and one small, standing together under a sky filled with improbable purple clouds. Garrett swings his legs off the bed and sits on the edge, his bare feet flat against the cold hardwood. At 36, his body still moves with the economy of motion that comes from years of training, but there are new stiffnesses now. New protests from joints that have been asked to do too much for too long. He rolls his right shoulder, feeling the old injury there grind like sand in a gearbox. Shrapnel from Kandahar. The surgeons got most of it out. Most isn't all. He stands, stretches, and catches his reflection in the mirror mounted on the closet door. Tall and lean, the kind of build that comes from functional strength rather than gym vanity. Angular face, strong jaw, a nose that's been broken at least twice. His dark hair is longer than it used to be, touching his collar, now no longer kept in the high and tight that was practically a uniform in itself. A few days' stubble shadows his cheeks. His eyes are the part that doesn't change. Gray-blue and flat like lake ice in January. The kind of eyes that have seen things and filed them away in compartments that don't open during daylight hours. The small scars tell their own story if you know how to read them. The thin white line through his right eyebrow, a knife Fallujah 2011. The puckered divot on his left cheekbone, rock fragment, explosive. Breach, gone wrong, classified location, classified year. And on his right wrist, partially hidden by the watch, he wears, even while sleeping, the perfectly circular burn scar that marks him more definitively than a fingerprint. Flashbang. Mosul. The same one that gave Nathan Caldwell his jaw scar. They were clearing a building together when the device cooked off early. Nathan went left, Garrett went right, and the explosion caught them both in its brief, blinding fury. He traces the scar with his thumb, a gesture so habitual he barely notices it anymore. Then he turns away from the mirror and starts his evening. The routine is the same every day, unvaried as a metronome. Shower, shave, the same khaki pants, the same white undershirt, the same cheap digital watch that keeps time to the millisecond. In the military, they called this kind of consistency discipline. Out here, it's just the scaffolding that holds his days together. At 5:15, he starts dinner. Spaghetti tonight, the noodles boiling in the dented pot that came with the apartment, the sauce simmering in a pan he picked up at a garage sale for $3. Nothing fancy, functional, like everything else in his life. At 5:45, the front door opens. The girl who enters is 7 years old with brown hair pulled back in a ponytail and the same gray-blue eyes that stare out from Garrett's face. She's small for her age, sharp-featured, with the watchful quality of a child who's learned to read rooms before entering them. Her backpack, purple, decorated with stars, hangs from one shoulder, half unzipped, trailing a worksheet that's trying to escape onto the floor. Audrey Cole drops her bag by the door, kicks off her sneakers without untying them, and crosses the kitchen to wrap her arms around her father's waist. She doesn't say anything. Neither does he. This is their ritual, the physical check-in that confirms they're both still here, still present, still together. After exactly 5 seconds, she counts them always. Audrey releases him and clambers onto one of the stools at the kitchen counter. She pulls the escaping worksheet free from her bag and flattens it in front of her, frowning at the math problems like they've personally offended her. Long division, she announces. Her voice is quiet but clear, the voice of a child who's learned that volume doesn't equal impact. Mrs. Patterson says I need to show my work. Garrett plates the spaghetti, setting her portion in front of her, along with a glass of milk. He claims the stool beside her, his own plate slightly larger, and watches as she twirls noodles around her fork with surprising precision. Do you understand the process? I understand how to get the answer. Her eyes don't leave her food. I just don't understand why I have to write down every step when I already know where I'm going. Something flickers across Garrett's face, not quite a smile, but close. Because when things go wrong, the steps are what save you. The end doesn't matter if you can't retrace the path that got you there. Audrey considers this, chewing thoughtfully. She doesn't ask what things go wrong means, or why her father talks like someone who's been lost and found his way back. She's 7, but she's lived enough life in those 7 years to know there are doors better left closed. They eat in comfortable silence. The radiator hisses, traffic murmurs outside. Somewhere in the building, a television plays a laugh track that sounds canned and hollow through the walls. At 6:15, Garrett clears the plates and runs water in the sink. Audrey retrieves her bag and stands by the door waiting. The apartment next to theirs belongs to Mrs. Whitmore, a 68-year-old retired school teacher who lost her husband to cancer 4 years ago and her only son to an accident long before that. She bakes constantly, fills her silence with public radio, and has become, by slow increments, in unspoken agreement, the closest thing to family that Garrett and Audrey have in this city. The door opens before they can knock. Mrs. Whitmore is tall and thin, with iron gray hair pinned in a bun and reading glasses perpetually perched on her nose. Her apartment smells of cinnamon and vanilla and jazz, drifts from the kitchen radio. Right on time, she observes, stepping aside to let Audrey enter. Her eyes move to Garrett, assessing. You look tired. I'm fine. Men who are fine don't have circles under their eyes at 6 in the evening. She presses a paper bag into his hands, warm, fragrant, clearly fresh from the oven. Muffins, blueberry, eat them before your shift. I won't have you starving out there. Garrett accepts the bag, inclining his head in acknowledgement. He crouches down, bringing himself to Audrey's eye level one. His daughter stands in the threshold between the two apartments, backpack over her shoulder, worksheet clutched in one hand. You remember the rules? She nods. Homework first, then reading. Bed by 9. No opening the door for anyone except you or Mrs. Whitmore. And if something happens, the question is casual routine. But Audrey's eyes flick briefly to the kitchen drawer, where she knows the folded paper waits the emergency contact, the protocol her father has drilled into her since she was old enough to understand the concept of contingency. If you're not back by 8 in the morning, I call the number. He nods, satisfied. Then he rises, hesitating for the space of a single breath. His hand lifts, almost touches her cheek, then falls back to his side. I'll see you when I get home. You always come home. It's not a question. It's an article of faith. The L train carries him north through the gathering dark, the city scrolling past the windows in fragments, brownstones and bodegas, parking lots and playgrounds, the layered geography of a metropolis where millions of lives stack on top of each other without ever truly touching. Garrett sits in a back corner, seat, his bag on his lap, his eyes moving constantly. An old man dozes 3 rows up, a newspaper folded across his chest. 2 teenage girls share earbuds, their heads bobbing to music he can't hear. A woman in scrubs, probably coming off shift at one of the hospitals, stares at her phone with the glazed look of someone who's been on her feet for 12 hours. None of them pay attention to the man in the corner. He's medium height, medium build, wearing clothes that don't attract notice. His face, when you look at it, somehow slides away from memory, leaving only the vague impression of someone ordinary. Someone forgettable. He's cultivated that quality for 3 years now. It's the most important skill he has. The train rocks and sways. Outside the windows, the skyline rises. The Tribune Tower, the Wrigley Building, the serrated silhouettes of glass and steel that mark the city's center of gravity. And there, catching the last of the sunset's orange light, a tower of mirrored panels that reflects the dying day like a blade catching fire. Ashford Technologies Tower. 35 stories of cutting-edge architecture, home to one of the nation's premier cybersecurity firms. And for the last 2 years, Garrett Cole's place of employment. He arrives at 6:50, 10 minutes before his shift starts. Always early, never late. The entrance he uses is around back past the loading dock through a door marked Authorized Personnel Only. His keycard beeps, the lock clicks. The hallway beyond is fluorescent lit and utilitarian, the unglamorous underbelly of the gleaming edifice above. The security station at this level is a closet with pretensions, 3 monitors showing camera feeds, a desk covered in clipboards and sign-in sheets, and a chair with a squeaky wheel that no one has gotten around to fixing. Marcus Yates, the evening shift guard, is gathering his things when Garrett enters. "Quiet night so far," Yates reports, shrugging into his jacket. He's 28, friendly, unremarkable, the kind of guy who talks about football scores and weather, and never notices that his night shift replacement rarely responds with more than monosyllables. Some kind of big meeting upstairs. CEO's burning the midnight oil again. Garrett nods, signing the log with a pen tethered to the desk by a length of twine. His handwriting is neat, precise, each letter formed with the care of someone who's learned that documentation matters. Yates leaves. The door clicks shut. The monitors hum. Alone, Garrett pulls a worn notebook from his bag, a small thing spiral-bound, its cover soft from handling. He opens it to the first page where a single sentence is written in his own handwriting. "Hope is not a strategy. Preparation is." The words have been there since he started this job. A reminder. A creed. The distillation of everything he learned in 15 years of operating in places where hope got people killed. He flips to today's date and begins his rounds. Most security guards Garrett has observed approach their jobs like sleepwalkers. They follow the prescribed route at the prescribed time, checking the prescribed checkpoints, and they notice nothing beyond the superficial. Light on, check. Door locked, check. Nobody bleeding on the floor. Check. Move on. Garrett notices everything. He notices when someone has changed the angle of a chair, when a desk has been moved 3 inches to the left, when the particular arrangement of papers on a tabletop doesn't match the arrangement from the night before. He notices the way sounds travel through the building, which vents create echoes, which corridors swallow noise, which stairwells amplify footsteps. He notices the security cameras and their blind spots, the fire doors and their closing times, the elevators and their mechanical rhythms. In 2 years, he has mapped this building in his mind with a completeness that approaches the architectural. He knows exit routes that aren't on any official floor plan. He knows maintenance crawl spaces and electrical conduits in the particular ductwork large enough to fit a human body. He knows the building better than anyone else who works here, including the people who designed it. None of this is required for his job. All of it is required for his peace of mind. At 7:30 p.m. on the 26th floor, he stops. The stairwell door is the same gray steel as every other stairwell door in the building. The frame is the same painted metal. The hinges are the same industrial-grade hardware. The lock is different. Garrett crouches, bringing his eyes level with the cylinder. His fingers trace the edges without touching, reading the metal like Braille. This is a Medeco M3. He replaced batteries in the building's lock system 3 months ago, and he knows every cylinder by sight. Except this isn't a Medeco. This is an Abloy Protec 2, different manufacturer, different keyway, different security protocol. Someone has swapped out the lock core, recently, judging by the absence of wear patterns around the keyhole. And there's no work order for this alteration. Garrett routes all maintenance requests through a digital system he helped implement, and he would know if someone had submitted a legitimate lock change. He pulls out his notebook, documenting the finding in precise detail. Floor door make and model of the new lock, date and time of discovery. Then he closes the notebook and continues his rounds. But his thoughts remain on that cylinder, turning the anomaly over like a puzzle piece that doesn't fit the available spaces. At 8:00 p.m., he descends to the ground floor monitoring room. 12 screens arrayed in a grid show feeds from cameras throughout the building. Loading dock, parking garage, main lobby, elevator banks, conference rooms, executive suites. He settles into the chair, the one with the squeaky wheel, and begins a systematic review. The feeds look normal. Staff working late at scattered desks, cleaning crew making their rounds, the overnight computer systems humming through their maintenance cycles. Then he notices the timestamp on camera 27, the one covering the main corridor of the executive floor. The number in the corner of the feed reads 19:59:57. His watch reads 21 bathroom, 3 seconds of delay. It could be a glitch. Servers fall out of sync networks, hiccup, minor discrepancies appear, and resolve themselves. But Garrett has monitored these feeds for 2 years. and the system has never shown latency before. 3 seconds might seem insignificant, barely enough time to blink twice, but in certain contexts, 3 seconds is all the time in the world. 3 seconds is how long it takes a man to cross a hallway without being accurately placed by security footage. 3 seconds is the margin of error that makes an alibi unverifiable. He notes the discrepancy in his book. Lock change camera delay. 2 anomalies in one evening. Coincidence exists, but coincidence this clean usually isn't. From the interior pocket of his jacket next to his heart, Garrett withdraws a phone. Not his regular smartphone that sits on the desk, its screen dark, its notifications silent. This phone is different. A Nokia black and battered, the kind of brick that was obsolete 15 years ago. No apps, no internet, no GPS. Only calls and texts, only one number in the contacts. He holds the device for a long moment weighing options. Then he types a short message. Possible situation. Ashford Tower. Will update if escalates. He sends it. The phone offers no confirmation, no read receipt, no indication that the message has gone anywhere at all. But Garrett knows it has. The man on the other end will see, it will understand its implications, will begin the mental calibration of resources and responses that such a message demands. Nathan Caldwell received this number 3 years ago, the night before Garrett Cole officially ceased to exist. They haven't spoken since. But some connections don't require maintenance to remain strong. The phone returns to its pocket. The vigil continues. At 8:15 p.m., Garrett is checking the loading dock when a white van pulls into the receiving bay. No markings on the panels, no logo, no company identification. The driver who emerges is a broad-shouldered man in technician's coveralls, an ID badge clipped to his chest. Garrett watches from the shadows of the corridor. The man walks with his shoulders back, his footsteps measured and even. Military bearing or close to it. His hands are calloused in specific places between thumb and forefinger, along the palm's edge, the patterns of someone familiar with weapons. The toolbox he carries from the van is heavy, but his arm doesn't adjust for the weight the way it should. The center of gravity is wrong. Whatever's in that box, it isn't tools. Garrett doesn't approach. He watches until the man disappears into a service elevator, then moves to the security terminal and pulls up the approved contractor list for today. Electrical maintenance, none scheduled. HVAC servicing, none scheduled. IT support, none scheduled. The man with the toolbox doesn't exist in any legitimate capacity. He documents this too. 3 anomalies now forming a pattern that his training refuses to ignore. Lock change camera delay, unscheduled personnel. The building is being prepared for something, and whoever's doing the preparing doesn't want it noticed. At 8:20 p.m., Garrett takes the elevator to the 27th floor. Pamela Crane is alone in the executive conference room arranging folders around a massive oval table. She's 31, attractive, in a severe way, with dark hair pulled back tight and a designer suit that costs more than Garrett's monthly rent. As the CEO's executive assistant, she controls access to the most powerful person in the building, and she wields that gatekeeping authority with visible satisfaction. Her eyes flick to him as he enters, then away, dismissing him in the same motion. To her, he's furniture, necessary but irrelevant. He approaches the table, keeping his body language unthreatening. When he speaks, his voice is level, informational, mitas. Crane, I need to report some irregularities. The lock on stairwell B on 26 has been changed without a work order. The camera timestamp for this floor is showing a 3-second delay. And there was an unscheduled contractor in the loading area who doesn't appear on any approved list. Pamela doesn't look up from her folders. I'll pass it along to Ms. Ashford. These issues could represent security vulnerabilities. I recommend we check them before Mr. Cole. Now she looks at him, and her expression carries the particular contempt reserved for people who forget their place. Ms. Ashford is preparing for the most important meeting of the quarter. The security system is functioning perfectly. Your job is to patrol the building, not to interpret data you're not qualified to understand. I suggest you focus on your actual responsibilities. For a moment, Garrett considers pressing the point. The anomalies are real. The threat they suggest is plausible. A real conversation, a genuine investigation could address both. But he's been here before in this exact position, trying to warn people who have already decided not to listen. You can't force someone to see what they're determined to ignore. You can only prepare for what happens when their blindness catches up to them. He nods once, acknowledging her dismissal, and leaves the conference room. The door whispers shut behind him. 12 minutes later, a response arrives through Pamela, relayed from the CEO herself. System is functioning normally. Tell him to concentrate on his duties. Garrett reads the message, files it in his memory, alongside all the other times powerful people chose convenience over caution. Then he returns to the monitoring room, powers up his personal laptop, and begins downloading the building's technical schematics. Not the public versions. The complete engineering documents, including the maintenance quarters, the electrical conduits, the emergency systems, the geography of the building's hidden spaces. If something happens tonight, and his instincts are screaming that something he intends to know every possible way out. 7 floors above in the executive suite, a different kind of preparation is underway. Vivian Ashford stands at her office window, watching the city darken below. She's 34 years old, black hair cut short in a style that photographs well for business magazines, brown eyes that miss nothing and forgive less. Her suit is charcoal gray, her heels are sensible but expensive, and her posture suggests a woman who learned long ago that appearing relaxed is a form of weakness she can't afford. Ashford Technologies bears her name because she built it. 10 years ago, she was a graduate student with a thesis on encryption protocols and a complete inability to suffer fools. Now she runs a company worth $400 million with contracts spanning the private sector and the defense industry, and a reputation for being brilliant, demanding, and utterly without sentiment. That reputation is armor. It has to be. She turns from the window as the door opens. Pamela enters with a tablet, already scrolling through tonight's agenda. Behind her, a small figure trails like a shadow. Madeline Ashford is 6 years old. She has her mother's dark hair and her father's quiet disposition, and she carries herself with the careful hesitancy of a child who understands that she occupies spaces not designed for her. In one hand, she clutches a worn stuffed rabbit. In the other, a box of crayons. The babysitter called in sick at 4 p.m. Every backup option fell through, and the board meeting couldn't be postponed. The Department of Defense contract signing is in 72 hours, and tonight's session is the final preparation. So Madeline is here in this glass and steel monument to her mother's ambition because there was nowhere else for her to go. Vivian crouches down, bringing herself level with her daughter. For a moment, the CEO vanishes, and what remains is simply a mother looking at her child. You'll stay in the conference room during the meeting. There's a corner with a table where you can draw. I'll be right there the whole time. Madeline nods, her eyes brown like her mother's, moved to the window to the city glittering beyond the glass. She doesn't ask why she couldn't stay home. She doesn't complain about the late hour or the strange environment. She's learned not to be trouble. The learning came early. It came from watching her mother work 18-hour days, from understanding at age 4 that some losses can't be fixed, from absorbing the unspoken truth that the universe takes what it wants and doesn't apologize. 4 years ago, a man in uniform came to their door. Vivian remembers everything about that morning. The thin light coming through the curtains, the weight of 2-year-old Madeline sleeping in the next room, the particular sound the officer's knock made against the wood. Soft but insistent. The knock of someone who doesn't want to deliver the news they're carrying. The officer was tall. She remembers that, and his voice low and calm, but threaded with something that might have been grief, might have been exhaustion, might have been the accumulated weight of every door he'd ever knocked on with this kind of message. James Ashford, Lieutenant Commander, United States Navy, training accident, equipment failure, Pacific Ocean, no remains recovered. She doesn't remember the officer's face. Shock has a way of erasing details. But she remembers his voice, and it comes back to her at strange moments in meetings, in quiet evenings, in the small hours when sleep won't come. A voice that told her she wasn't alone, even when she felt more alone than she had ever felt before. She never found out who he was. She tried in the weeks after the funeral to locate the officer who'd delivered the notification. But military bureaucracy swallowed the request, and eventually the grief demanded too much energy for her to continue the search. Now she channels everything into the company, into control, into building something that can't be taken from her the way James was taken. The conference room fills slowly. Corbin Shaw arrives first. As always, the CFO's punctuality is legendary. At 47, he carries himself with the confidence of a man who's spent decades mastering the language of money. Silver-touched hair, tailored suit, a smile that puts nervous investors at ease. He helped Vivian grow this company from a garage startup to a market leader, and his seat at the table is earned. What Vivian doesn't know, what no one in this room knows, is that Corbin Shaw is drowning. The gambling started small. Poker nights with friends from business school, the kind of low-stakes entertainment that successful men use to unwind. Then came the casino trips, then the private games with higher buy-ins and looser rules, then the losses and the borrowing to cover them, and the deeper losses and the harder borrowing. The Castellano organization doesn't advertise its services. You have to know someone who knows someone, have to be desperate enough to ask the wrong questions in the wrong places. Corbin found them 18 months ago when his legitimate credit was exhausted and his options had narrowed to a single terrible point. $4.2 million. That's what he owes now, principal, plus the interest that compounds like a tumor. The original debt was $2 million. The rest is the cost of time, the penalty for not being able to pay. 1 month ago, a photograph arrived in his email. Margaret, his wife, his partner of 22 years, the woman he loves more than he has ever been able to say, standing at a farmer's market, selecting flowers, oblivious to the camera that captured her from behind. The message was simple: pay by the 20th, or Margaret has an accident. Corbin has spent the last 30 days constructing his escape. The plan requires Vivian to sign certain documents to authorize certain transfers without reading the fine print too carefully. The plan requires armed men to create chaos to generate the kind of fear that makes people compliant. The plan requires Dominic Reeves, the man with the toolbox, who isn't a technician, to do what Corbin himself could never do. It's supposed to be clean. No one gets hurt. Vivian signs the papers. The money moves. Corbin and Pamela disappear to a country without extradition treaties. Margaret is safe. Everyone is safe. That's what Corbin tells himself. It's easier than admitting that he's handed control to people who make their living from violence, that his desperation has built a machine he can no longer steer. He takes his seat at the conference table, spreading documents with hands that tremble slightly when he forgets to control them. Across the room, Pamela catches his eye and nods almost imperceptibly. Everything is in place. The lock changes, the camera delays the communications, jamming equipment that will activate when Reeves gives the signal. Finn Holloway enters next, the company's general counsel. 52 years old, reading glasses perpetually perched on his nose, the kind of lawyer who dots every I with the anxiety of a man who's seen deals collapse over punctuation. He settles into his chair and immediately begins reviewing the contract documents, making small notes in margins. Madeline finds her corner, a small table near the window away from the main proceedings. She spreads her crayons in a careful row, pulls fresh paper from the supply Pamela arranged, and begins to draw. Two figures, one tall and one small, standing together. A yellow sun above them. Purple clouds, because purple is her favorite color, and her drawings are the one place where reality bends to her preferences. She doesn't know that her mother is watching. Vivian stands at the head of the conference table, projecting confidence, but her eyes keep drifting to the corner where her daughter sits. The girl is so quiet, so self-contained, 6 years old and already expert at making herself invisible. It's Vivian's fault. She knows this. The work hours, the ambition, the way she's poured herself into building this company instead of building a relationship with her daughter. She tells herself she's doing it for Madeline, for Madeline's future, for Madeline's security, for all the things a mother should provide. But the truth, the one she doesn't examine too closely, is that the company is easier. The company doesn't look at her with James's eyes and remind her of everything she's lost. The meeting begins at 9:30 p.m. Documents are passed around the table, reviewed, discussed. The conversation is technical and detailed: contract terms, intellectual property clauses, liability structures, the intricate choreography of a $300 million deal. At 9:45 p.m., the lights flicker. The first interruption is brief, a half-second dimming that could be a glitch, a momentary fluctuation in the building's electrical grid. Everyone looks up, exchanges glances, then returns to their documents. The second flicker lasts longer. 2 seconds of darkness before the overheads return to full strength. Someone makes a joke about the power company, and nervous laughter circles the table. The third time, the lights go out completely. Emergency lighting kicks in, red LEDs mounted along the baseboards, casting the conference room in the color of blood. The darkness transforms familiar shapes into suggestions. The table becomes a void. The windows become rectangles of urban glow. The faces around the room become masks of shadow and crimson. Madeline screams. Her crayons scatter as she launches herself from her chair, running to her mother. Vivian catches her, pulls her close, feels the small body shaking against her own. The fire alarm begins to wail, a piercing oscillation that drives into the ears like an ice pick. And under that sound, another, the heavy metallic thunder of emergency doors dropping from their ceiling housings, slamming into place along every corridor, sealing the exits, trapping everyone inside. Corbin Shaw stands at his place at the table, his face illuminated by the bloody emergency lights, and he's working to keep his expression calm. This is the plan. This is what's supposed to happen. The chaos, the fear, the sense of being trapped, all of it were designed to make Vivian compliant, to make her sign anything that offers an escape. But something feels wrong. The timing, the execution, the particular quality of the darkness, it's more complete than he expected, more disorienting. And the fire alarm wasn't supposed to sound. Reeves said the system would be disabled. Vivian's voice cuts through the wail. What's happening? Someone tell me what's happening. Corbin forces steadiness into his reply. Probably just a system malfunction. The backup generators should kick in any moment. But the generators don't kick in. The red emergency lights flicker, stabilize, flicker again. And Vivian, pulling out her phone to call for help, discovers what Corbin already knows. There's no signal, no connection. The jamming equipment is working perfectly. In the corner, Madeline has stopped screaming. She clings to her mother, her face pressed into expensive silk, her small hands fisted in fabric. Her eyes are squeezed shut, her lips moving in something that might be a prayer or might just be the wordless minterum of a frightened child trying to disappear. Finn Holloway stumbles toward the door, yanks at the handle. The heavy wood doesn't move. The emergency lockdown has engaged, and without the security override codes, the conference room has become a cell. Pamela Crane stands very still, her face composed, her tablet held against her chest. She knows what's coming next. Reeves and his team should be moving through the building, now making their way upward, timing their arrival to coincide with the peak of confusion. What none of them know is that someone else heard the alarms. Someone else recognized the pattern. Someone else is already moving through the building's hidden arteries, navigating by memory and instinct toward the heart of the chaos. Garrett Cole left the monitoring room the moment the lights failed. He didn't wait for instructions. He didn't call for backup. He simply rose from his chair, collected the two things that mattered, a radio and a flashlight, and began to climb. The stairwells are designed for evacuation, which means they're designed for downward travel. Going up against the flow of an emergency isn't just difficult, it's counterintuitive, a violation of every instinct that tells the human body to flee from danger. But Garrett learned long ago to ignore those instincts when they conflicted with the mission. And the mission is clear. There's a child on the 27th floor, a 6-year-old girl who doesn't know that the building around her has become a trap. He takes the stairs 2 at a time, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. The emergency lights paint the concrete walls in arterial red. Above him, the fire alarm screams its endless warning. At floor 23, he hears the footsteps. Multiple people moving together, ascending from below. Heavy boots, measured pace, the sound of disciplined movement. He presses himself into an alcove and waits, controlling his breathing, becoming just another shadow in a building full of shadows. 4 men pass his position without seeing him. They're dressed in black, carrying equipment cases that make the same wrong-weighted sound as the toolbox he observed earlier. The man in front, the one from the loading dock, moves with the confidence of someone who knows exactly where he's going and exactly what he'll do when he gets there. Garrett counts them as they pass. 4 operatives ascending toward the executive level. Armed, organized, professional. This isn't opportunistic crime. This is a planned assault. He waits until their footsteps fade, then continues his own ascent. Whatever they're planning, he needs to reach the 27th floor before they do. The bypass code still works. The lock acknowledges his credentials, and the fire door on 27 cracks open just wide enough for him to slip through. The executive level is chaos in miniature. The emergency lights cast everything in bloody monochrome. Smoke, not real smoke, he realizes, but theatrical fog from canisters designed to obscure without suffocating drifts through the corridors. The fire alarm continues its relentless wail. Garrett moves toward the conference room, placing each footstep with care. His flashlight stays off now. In this environment, light marks you as a target more surely than sound. The conference room doors are solid mahogany designed to impress rather than resist. One sharp kick properly placed and they swing inward. 5 faces turn toward him, lit red and terrified. The CEO stands near the head of the table, her daughter pressed against her side. The CFO is halfway out of his chair, frozen in what might be surprise or might be the beginning of a guilty startle. The lawyer has backed against the window wall, and the assistant is clutching her tablet like a shield. Vivian Ashford's voice is sharp enough to cut glass. "Who are you? What are you doing here?" He doesn't waste time on introductions. The situation requires brevity, and the people in this room need to understand their position. Armed men in the building, coming up from below. Communications are jammed. The exits are sealed. We need to move. Now. Vivian's eyes narrow. She's assessing him, this maintenance worker, this nobody in a cheap uniform, and finding the authority in his voice inconsistent with his appearance. For a moment, the CEO's instinct to command wars with the mother's instinct to protect. The mother wins. Her arms tighten around Madeline, and she steps forward. Corbin Shaw's voice cuts in, too loud, too insistent. "Now wait just a minute. We can't simply abandon the building based on some security guard's paranoia. I'm sure there's a reasonable explanation." Garrett turns to look at him, just looks. His expression doesn't change, but something in his eyes makes the CFO's words dry up mid-sentence. When Garrett speaks again, his words are addressed to Vivian, but his gaze remains on Corbin. "The lock on stairwell B was changed without authorization. The security cameras are running 3 seconds delayed. An unregistered contractor entered the building earlier tonight carrying equipment inconsistent with maintenance tools. These aren't coincidences. Someone prepared this building for what's happening now." Vivian processes this information with the speed of a woman accustomed to making decisions under pressure. Her eyes move from Garrett to Corbin, and something shifts in her expression, a question taking root, suspicion beginning to bloom. "How do we get out? I know routes that aren't on any official floor plan. Maintenance corridors, service passages, ways to move through this building without being seen. But we need to go now, and we need to go quietly." The girl Madeline is crying silently, her face still buried against her mother's side. Garrett crouches, bringing himself to her level, and when he speaks, his voice softens into something that might almost be called gentle. "What's your name?" She peeks at him with one eye red-rimmed and wet. Her voice is barely a whisper. "Madeline." "Madeline, my name is Garrett. I have a daughter named Audrey. She's 7 years old, just a little bigger than you. When we're scared, we play a game called Silent Steps. Would you like to learn it?" The girl hesitates, then nods. "The rules are simple. Breathe in for 4 counts. Breathe out for 4 counts. And walk so quietly that even the shadows can't hear you. The person who moves the most silently wins. Do you think you can do that?" Another nod, more certain this time. "Good." He rises, turning back to Vivian. "Stay close. Move when I move. Stop when I stop. Don't speak unless absolutely necessary. And whatever happens, stay behind me." She nods, and in that gesture, simple, instinctive, a mother trusting a stranger with her child's life, something fundamental shifts between them. Garrett moves to the door, checks the corridor, and motions for them to follow. One by one, they file out of the conference room and into the red-lit hallway, the CEO and her daughter, the CFO, whose hands won't stop trembling, the assistant whose composure is beginning to crack, the lawyer whose ragged breathing echoes off the walls. The fire alarm still screams. The emergency lights still pulse. Somewhere below, armed men are climbing toward them, and somewhere above, the night sky waits indifferent to whatever happens in this tower of glass and steel. But between the threat and the innocent, a man who learned to be invisible has chosen to be seen. The door to the maintenance corridor closes behind them, sealing out the chaos of the main hallway. Ahead, the narrow passage stretches into darkness, lit only by the occasional flicker of emergency bulbs. Garrett moves forward, and the others follow, and the building holds its breath. The maintenance corridor swallows them like a throat. Concrete walls press close on either side, studded with pipes and conduits that snake toward destinations the building's regular occupants will never see. The air tastes of machine oil and old dust, and the emergency lighting here is sparse. A single bulb every 30 feet, each casting a weak red circle that barely touches the darkness between. Garrett moves at the front of the line, his footsteps placing themselves with the automatic precision of someone who's learned that sound can kill. Behind him, Vivian carries Madeline on her hip, the girl's face still pressed into her mother's shoulder. Corbin Shaw follows next, his expensive shoes scuffing against the concrete, his breathing too loud in the confined space. Pamela Crane walks with her arms wrapped around herself, and Finn Holloway brings up the rear, wheezing slightly from the exertion of keeping pace. They've been moving for 3 minutes when Garrett raises his fist, the universal signal for stop. The group freezes. Even Corbin, who's never served a day in his life, recognizes the gesture from 100 action movies and obeys it instinctively. In the silence, sounds become distinct. The distant thrum of the building's mechanical systems, the muffled wail of the fire alarm dulled by layers of concrete, and something else, footsteps somewhere above them moving with purpose. Garrett counts the steps. 4 sets of feet, maybe 5. Coordinated movement, tactical spacing. The assault team is on the executive floor now, discovering the empty conference room, beginning their search. He motions the group forward again, turning down a side passage that leads to a service stairwell. This route will take them around the main corridors, through the building's infrastructure, toward an exit that most people don't know exists. Vivian's voice comes low and urgent near his ear. Where are we going? Down. There's an emergency egress on the 12th floor that connects to the parking structure next door. It's not on the standard evacuation maps. How do you know about it? Because I spent 2 years learning every way in and out of this building. Because I don't work anywhere I can't escape from. She absorbs this information in silence. The man in front of her, this security guard, this maintenance worker, speaks like someone who spent his life calculating exits, like someone who expects at any moment to need them. They descend 2 flights before Garrett stops again. This time, he doesn't just raise his fist. He turns his eyes, finding Corbin Shaw in the dim red light, and when he speaks, his voice carries an edge that wasn't there before. Ms. Ashford, you should ask your CFO about the lock changes. Corbin's face, already pale, goes the color of old ash. His mouth opens, closes, opens again. No sound emerges. Vivian's gaze shifts between the 2 men, calculation moving behind her eyes. She spent a decade reading people in boardrooms, identifying the tells that reveal weakness or deception. Now those skills turn on someone she thought she knew. Corbin, I don't know what he's talking about. This man is clearly paranoid, making accusations based on the work order was signed by your office. Garrett's voice is flat, factual, the tone of someone delivering testimony rather than accusations. Morton Security Solutions. Not in our approved vendor list. The authorization came through your executive account 3 days ago. That's impossible. Someone must have forged. The camera delays started this afternoon. Someone accessed the security server and introduced latency into the timestamp synchronization. The login credentials used belong to a CFO-level admin account. Corbin's hands are trembling now, the fine motor control abandoning him. He looks at Vivian, then at Pamela, then back at Garrett, and something in his face begins to crumble. You don't understand. The words come out ragged, torn from somewhere deep. You can't understand. They were going to kill her. They sent me a picture of Margaret at the farmer's market. They said if I didn't pay by the 20th, she'd have an accident. Vivian's voice could freeze steel. Who, Corbin? Who was going to kill Margaret? Castellano. He swallows hard. The organization. I owed them money. A lot of money. I tried to stop. I tried to pay it back, but the interest kept compounding, and then they started threatening. How much? The question is precise, surgical. 4.2 million. The number hangs in the stale air like a curse. Finn Holloway makes a strangled sound. Pamela Crane's face has gone carefully blank, but her knuckles are white where she grips her tablet. Vivian's voice drops to something barely above a whisper, but the fury in it fills the corridor. You sold out my company. You put my daughter in danger. For gambling debts. I didn't have a choice. Corbin's composure shatters completely. Tears streak his face, catching the red emergency light like trails of blood. They were going to kill Margaret. You don't know what these people are capable of. I love her. I couldn't let them. You had a choice. Garrett's interruption cuts through Corbin's breakdown like a blade. You could have gone to the phone. You could have told Ms. Ashford. You could have done anything except hire armed men to terrorize innocent people. His eyes moved to Pamela. And you? How long have you been part of this? Pamela's mask cracks just slightly. Her chin lifts with defiant pride. 6 years, since before she even hired me. The revelation lands like a physical blow. Vivian takes a step back, her arm tightening around Madeline. 6 years. Her personal assistant, the woman who managed her schedule, who had access to every confidential document, every private conversation, every vulnerable moment, a plant from the beginning. Garrett files the information and moves on. There will be time for consequences later. Right now, survival takes precedence. We deal with this after we're out. Move. He starts down the stairs again, not waiting to see if they follow. After a moment's hesitation, they do, even Corbin, even Pamela. Whatever betrayal lies between them, it's smaller than the threat closing in from above. The HVAC control room on the 25th floor is a cathedral of machinery. Industrial air handlers the size of compact cars line the walls, their fans spinning in slow rotation, even with the power disrupted. Ductwork spreads across the ceiling like metallic veins carrying climate-controlled air to every corner of the building. The constant hum of the equipment creates a blanket of white noise that masks smaller sounds. Garrett leads the group to a corner behind the largest air handler, where a service alcove provides cover and concealment. He positions them with quick gestures, Vivian and Madeline in the deepest recess, Finn against the wall where he can sit and rest his laboring lungs, Corbin and Pamela separated from the others, watched but not trusted. Stay here, don't move. Don't make any sound. Vivian's hand catches his arm as he turns to leave. Where are you going? To make sure our exit stays clear. And if it doesn't, he looks at her, really looks for the first time, seeing the fear beneath the control, the mother beneath the executive. His answer comes without hesitation, without bravado, as simple as a mathematical truth. Then I clear it. He moves toward the door, slipping through into the corridor beyond. 2 men enter the HVAC room 4 minutes after Garrett positions himself in the shadows near the secondary entrance. They move professionally, weapon-mounted lights, sweeping in coordinated arcs, footsteps placing themselves to minimize sound on the concrete floor. Their gear is military-grade tactical vests, communications, earpieces, holstered sidearms supplementing the rifles in their hands. They don't see Garrett because Garrett doesn't want to be seen. In another life, in another world, this was his expertise. Not the loud work of assault teams and dynamic entries, but the quiet work of being where you weren't expected, of moving through spaces that should have been secure, of becoming invisible to people actively looking for you. The nickname his unit gave him wasn't random. Ghost didn't earn that name by being obvious. He watches the 2 men approach the area where his group is hidden. Their lights probe the spaces between machinery, searching for human shapes. They're good, trained, disciplined, thorough in their sweep pattern. But they're searching with light in a dark room, and that gives Garrett all the advantage he needs. The first man passes within arm's length of his position. Garrett lets him go, counting heartbeats, calculating angles. The second man follows 3 seconds behind, maintaining tactical spacing. When Garrett moves, it's without warning or hesitation. His hand closes over the first man's mouth from behind his other arm, wrapping around the throat, applying pressure to the carotid arteries with the precision of someone who's done this before. The chokehold isn't about strength, it's about leverage, about understanding the architecture of the human body well enough to shut it down efficiently. The man's rifle clatters against his chest strap as he struggles. 4 seconds. 5. His body goes limp, unconscious, but alive. The second man is already turning his weapon, rising, his mouth opening to shout a warning. Garrett drops the first body and moves. 2 shots. Not from his hand, he has no gun yet, but from his mind, calculating trajectories. He hits the second man's weapon, driving the barrel aside with one hand while the other strikes the solar plexus. The rifle fires wild, the muzzle flash illuminating the room in a strobing instant, the bullet punching through ductwork somewhere overhead. The man doubles over. Garrett's knee comes up, meeting his chin with force that's carefully calibrated, enough to incapacitate, not enough to kill. The body drops. In the sudden silence, Garrett stands over 2 unconscious forms, his breathing slightly elevated but controlled. He hasn't had to do this in 3 years. The skills apparently don't atrophy. He strips both men of their weapons, 2 rifles, 2 handguns, spare magazines. One of the radios has been knocked loose during the scuffle, and he clips it to his belt, adjusting the earpiece to monitor their communications. The chatter is immediate and alarming. Team 2 report. We heard a shot. Static, no response. Team 2 respond. Garrett keys the radio. Team 2 engage hostile contact pursuing East Stairwell. His voice is clipped professional, mimicking the cadence of the men he just incapacitated. It won't fool them for long, but it might by minutes, and minutes matter. He returns to the alcove where his group waits. Vivian's eyes widen at the weapons he's carrying, but she doesn't speak. She's learning to trust actions over words. Garrett hands her one of the pistols. Do you know how to use this point and pull? James insisted I learn. Finger off the trigger until you're ready to shoot. Don't fire unless you have no other choice. He turns to Finn. Can you handle a gun? The lawyer shakes his head, his face gray with stress. Then stay behind the people who can. Garrett slings one rifle over his shoulder, keeps the other in his hands. The familiar weight settles against his body like a remembered language. We need to move. They know someone's fighting back now. The building's going to get very crowded very quickly. They descend through service corridors and maintenance stairwells, following a route that exists on no official map. Garrett navigates from memory, leading them around security checkpoints and surveillance positions, through spaces that were designed for machinery rather than people. On the 24th floor, Garrett stops at a heavy steel door marked electrical, authorized personnel only. He produces a key card that shouldn't work on this lock, swipes it, and the door opens to reveal the building's main generator room. The space is massive, dominated by 2 diesel generators the size of delivery trucks. The smell of fuel permeates everything sharp chemical, faintly nauseating. Emergency lighting casts long shadows between the machinery, and the hum of idle systems creates a constant background drone. Garrett sweeps the room with his rifle checking corners, verifying clear zones. The group files in behind him, spreading out among the equipment. Then a voice emerges from the darkness on the far side of the room. You shouldn't be here, Ghost. Garrett freezes. The voice is familiar, not from recent memory, but from older buried years. The kind of voice that belongs to sand and heat and the particular quality of Afghan moonlight. A figure steps out from behind the secondary generator. Black tactical gear, face partially obscured by shadows, but the posture is unmistakable. The way he holds his weapon, the way he moves. Reeves. Dominic Reeves advances slowly, his rifle trained on Garrett's center mass. Behind him, 3 more men materialize from the shadows, spreading out to cover the exits. The trap is elegant. Let them come to the generators. Let them think they were making progress, then close the noose. 7 years. Dominic's voice carries something between anger and admiration. I thought they buried you after Kandahar. Word was the great Ghost finally caught something he couldn't outrun. I retired. You ran. The accusation cuts sharp. After everything you did, after you destroyed my career, you gotta walk away. Start fresh. I didn't have that option. Vivian watches this exchange from her position near the wall, Madeline clutched tight against her. She doesn't understand the history between these men, but she can read the tension. This isn't just tactical, it's personal. Garrett's grip on his rifle doesn't waver, but he doesn't raise it to firing position either. His voice remains steady. I didn't destroy your career, Dominic. You did that yourself, in Kabul, with a 14-year-old who was calling his mother. Dominic's jaw tightens. The old wound never properly healed, tears fresh. He had a phone, in a combat zone. What was I supposed to think? You were supposed to think before you pulled the trigger. That's what separates soldiers from murderers. And you were supposed to have my back. The words explode out of Dominic, years of resentment compressed into a single outburst. We served together. We bled together. And when I made one mistake in 4 tours, you wrote the report that ended everything. You didn't even try to protect me. Protecting you would have meant lying, would have meant pretending that boy's death didn't happen. I couldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. The 2 men face each other across 20 feet of concrete floor, their weapons steady, their histories colliding in the hum of diesel generators. The 3 operatives behind Dominic wait for orders, their rifles trained on the civilians huddled against the wall. Dominic's voice drops to something quieter, more dangerous. Tonight is simple ghost. You walk away. Take your daughter. Take your quiet life. Forget you ever saw any of this. No one has to die. And the woman and child behind me, not your concern. Gershit's answer comes without hesitation, without doubt. A daughter needs to know that when others are in danger, you help. That's the only lesson that matters. Dominic laughs a harsh, broken sound. You always did have a hero complex, even when the heroics got people killed. You're thinking of yourself, Dominic. I never got anyone killed who didn't make that choice themselves. The standoff stretches. Dominic's finger rests on his trigger guard, calculating odds, weighing options. He has numerical superiority. He has better positioning. But he also knows what Ghost is capable of, has seen it firsthand in a dozen engagements across 3 continents. And somewhere in the wreckage of his anger, he remembers the man Garrett used to be. The officer who led from the front, who never asked his team to take risks. He wouldn't take himself, who carried wounded men across miles of hostile territory because leaving them behind wasn't an option. Stand down, Ghost. Last chance. You know I can't do that. Then I'm sorry. Dominic's rifle rises. Garrett moves. The distance between them collapses in a heartbeat. Garrett's own weapon swings up and aside, blocking Dominic's barrel as it tracks toward him. The shot goes wild, punching through a ventilation duct with a spray of sparks. Then they're body to body, too close for rifles, fighting with the brutal efficiency of men who've trained for exactly this scenario. The 3 operatives can't fire. Their boss is in the line. They circle looking for angles, but Garrett keeps Dominic between himself and them, using his opponent as a shield, even as they grapple. Knee to the thigh, elbow to the ribs. Dominic absorbs the blows and returns them, matching Garrett's precision with force. He's bigger, younger, hasn't spent 3 years letting his edge dull. But Garrett has something Dominic doesn't, the cold clarity of a man fighting for something beyond himself. They break apart, both breathing hard. Dominic wipes blood from a split lip. Garrett favors his left side where a rib might be cracked. You used to be faster. Dominic circles looking for an opening. I used to be a lot of things. Dominic feints left, then drives forward with a tackle that sends both men crashing into a generator housing. Metal rings against flesh. Garrett takes the impact with his shoulder, converts the momentum into a roll that brings him up on top. His forearm presses against Dominic's throat. Not crushing, controlling. Needs enough pressure to make a point, not enough to kill. I could end this right now. Garrett's voice is barely a whisper, meant only for the man beneath him. But I'm not a killer, and you don't have to be one either. Whatever Castellano is paying you, it's not worth this. It's not worth becoming what they want you to be. Dominic's eyes, wild with combat adrenaline, meet Garrett's. For a moment, something human flickers in them. Recognition of the man Garrett used to be. Memory of the soldier he himself used to be before the court-martial, before the mercenary work, before he sold his skills to anyone willing to pay. Then the moment passes. Dominic bucks, trying to throw Garrett off, but the hold is good, the leverage is right, and after another few seconds of futile struggle, Dominic's eyes roll back and his body goes limp. Garrett releases him immediately, checking the pulse. Strong and steady, unconscious, not dead. He turns to face the 3 remaining Soyertipfis. They have their weapons raised, but they haven't fired. Men like this work for money, not ideology. They're not willing to die for a mission that's clearly falling apart. Garrett's voice carries across the generator room, calm but absolute. You have 2 choices. Leave now and this ends. Stay and I do to you what I did to him. 3 seconds of silence. Then the first weapon lowers. The second follows. The third man actually laughs, a nervous, relieved sound. We're out. He's the one who drove the van, the one Garrett spotted in the loading dock. This gig isn't worth dying for. They retreat through the far door, leaving their unconscious leader on the concrete floor. The sound of their footsteps fades into the building's depths. Garrett stands alone among the generators, his body aching from the fight, his mind already calculating next steps. The immediate threat is neutralized, but there will be more men, more complications. From his pocket, he pulls the Nokia. The screen shows a message that arrived sometime during the confrontation. Coming, ETA 8 minutes Caldwell, Beta 3. Nathan received his earlier warning. SWAT is on the way. Beta 3 is an entry protocol they developed together years ago for situations exactly like this one. A friendly inside a hostile building, maintaining communication through unconventional channels. 8 minutes. Garrett can keep everyone alive for 8 minutes. He returns to where Vivian and the others wait. Help is coming. 8 minutes. We just need to stay hidden for 8 minutes. Vivian's eyes move to the unconscious form on the floor, to the weapons scattered across the concrete, to the man standing before her, who has just fought his way through 4 trained operatives using nothing but hands and determination. Who are you? The question isn't about his name, it's about everything else. Garrett meets her gaze. In the red emergency light, his eyes are impossible to read. I'm a father. Everything else is just history. 5 floors below in the ground level security station, Marcus Yates watches a monitor that shows an empty corridor. His hand rests on his phone where text messages have been flowing steadily for the past hour. Target group moving down through service levels. Currently floor 24, generator room. He sends the update and waits for a response. Marcus has been inside Ashford Technologies for 18 months, installed by Castellano, as a contingency eyes and ears in case their primary operation ever needed support. The response comes quickly. Reeves down, team scattered, handle it yourself. Marcus reads the message twice, feeling the weight of it settle into his stomach. Handle it yourself. That means going active. That means stepping out of his cover role and into something much more dangerous. He thinks about the money waiting in an offshore account. He thinks about the alternative, what happens to people who disappoint Castellano. He thinks about Garrett Cole, the quiet man who works the night shift and notices things that should go unnoticed. Then he pulls a gun from beneath the security desk and heads for the stairs. The group is moving again, ascending now toward the upper floors where SWAT will be entering. Garrett leads his rifle up, his attention split between the corridor ahead and the radio chatter in his ear. The assault team's communications have fragmented. Different voices calling for status updates, receiving no response. The mention of Ghost, his old call sign, spoken with a mixture of disbelief and fear. They know someone is in the building who wasn't part of their calculations, and that knowledge is shaking their confidence. They're on the 17th floor when Garrett notices the anomaly. The stairwell they've been using has an exit onto this level, and the door is slightly ajar, a fraction of an inch, barely visible, but enough to indicate recent passage. He signals the group to stop pressing them back against the wall of the landing. His rifle comes up, trained on the door. Every instinct screams that something is wrong. Stay here. The whisper is barely audible. If I'm not back in 2 minutes, continue up. Don't stop for anything. Vivian nods, her face pale but composed. She's holding it together for Madeline, for the little girl who needs to believe that adults are in control even when nothing is. Garrett approaches the door with the careful patience of someone who's cleared 1,000 rooms and knows that speed kills. He tests the handle. Unlocked. His breathing steadies into a combat rhythm, slow, deep, controlled. The door swings open. The hallway beyond is empty, or appears to be. Office doors line both walls, all of them closed. Emergency lighting casts the space in bloody monochrome. He checks the first office. Clear. The second. Clear. The third movement behind him. The whisper of cloth against cloth, the displacement of air that precedes an attack. Garrett spins, bringing his rifle around, but Marcus Yates is already inside his guard, the barrel of a pistol pressed against Garrett's ribs. Don't! Marcus's voice is tight with adrenaline. I've got friends outside. One word from me and they come in here and kill everyone. It's a bluff. Garrett knows it's a bluff, knows the teams are scattered and demoralized, but Marcus doesn't know that he knows. The advantage lies in appearing outgunned. Garrett lets his rifle lower. You're Castellano's inside man. 18 months. Marcus's grip on the pistol is steady, but his eyes dart nervously toward the stairwell door. I sat in that security booth watching you walk past every night. You never suspected a thing. I suspected many things. I just couldn't prove them. Well, now you don't have to worry about proof. Now you just have to worry about whether I decide to let you live. Garrett's mind processes the situation with cold efficiency. Marcus is close, too close to miss, but also too close to maintain perfect control. The pistol is against his ribs, which means Marcus hasn't actually shot him yet. He's hesitating, looking for leverage, trying to figure out how to turn this into something more than just another body. What do you want, Marcus? I want to get out of here. I want the money I was promised. And I want to not die tonight. The words come fast, revealing more than Marcus intends. He's scared. You're going to help me do all three. Help to someone. The CEO. She's worth something. You're going to bring her out here, and we're going to use her to negotiate our way past whatever's waiting outside. Garrett considers this. Vivian as a hostage. Madeline watching her mother dragged away at gunpoint. The terror in the girl's eyes, the helplessness in Vivian's. His voice comes out flat, toneless. No. No. Marcus's laugh is incredulous. You don't have a choice. I have a gun in your ribs. And I have two hands. Garrett's movement is so fast that Marcus doesn't register it until it's over. His right hand clamps down on the pistol, pushing it away from his body while twisting the barrel toward the ceiling. His left elbow drives into Marcus's temple with the precision of a hammer finding a nail. The gun fires once the bullet punching through acoustic tile, and then Marcus is falling, his eyes rolling back, his body crumpling to the carpet. Garrett catches the pistol before it hits the ground. He checks Marcus's pulse, steady, if sluggish, and drags the unconscious man into the nearest office. Using Marcus's own belt and shoelaces, he secures him to a desk leg. When he returns to the stairwell, Vivian is waiting with the others, her eyes wide. The shot, handled, keep moving. They climb. The radio in Garrett's ear crackles. All units police presence detected. Repeat police approaching the building. Fall back to extraction points. The SWAT team has arrived. But between the 20th floor and the 27th, there's still building. Still opportunities for things to go wrong. At the 20th floor, they hear them. Voices below growing closer. The remaining Castellano operatives making their desperate push before the window closes. Faster, Garrett's command is urgent. 27th floor, the conference room. It's the first place SWAT will clear. They climb. Madeline is crying again, silent tears streaming down her face as her mother carries her up flight after flight. Finn Holloway is gray-faced and gasping, his hand pressed it against his chest, his legs threatening to buckle with every step. Corbin and Pamela move in numb automation, their earlier composure completely gone. 22, 23, 24. Below them, the pursuing footsteps grow louder. Above them, muffled concussions, flashbangs, breaching charges, signal SWAT's progress through the building. 25, 26. The door to the 27th floor appears ahead. Garrett reaches it first, throws it open, sweeps the corridor beyond with his rifle. Empty. The emergency lights still pulse their bloody warning, and smoke from the earlier tactical fog lingers in corners, but there's no movement, no threat. Go. Straight to the conference room. Don't stop. They spill into the hallway, running now, all pretense of stealth abandoned. The conference room doors are still open from their earlier escape, and they pour through into the space where this night began. Madeline's crayons are still scattered across her corner table. The documents from the interrupted meeting lie spread across the conference table, their corporate significance rendered absurd by the events that followed. Garrett positions the group near the center of the room, away from windows and doors. His rifle stays up, trained on the entrance. Seconds pass. The fire alarm has finally stopped, leaving a ringing silence that presses against the eardrums. The emergency lights continue their pulsing rhythm. Then the sounds begin. Heavy boots in the corridor. Multiple sets of feet, moving toward them. The door bursts inward. Smoke grenades fly into the room, filling the air with chemical fog. Flashbang detonations turn the world white and silent. Through the chaos, Garrett sees shapes moving, dark figures, weapons raised, coming through the breach with practiced coordination. 6 guns track toward him. His rifle is in his hands. In this moment, he could raise it, could start shooting, could take down at least 2 before they got him. His training screams at him to fight to survive, to eliminate the threat. But Vivian is behind him. Madeline is behind him. And if he starts shooting, the people in this room, friendly or hostile, will shoot back. He has one choice that might save the innocent lives at his back. He turns away from the guns. 6 barrels track his movement, fingers on triggers, is ready to fire at the first sign of aggression. He doesn't care. He plants his feet, squares his shoulders, and spreads his arms wide. A human shield, a man offering his body to buy a few seconds of hesitation, a few moments for someone to realize that the people behind him aren't threats. Vivian presses Madeline against her chest, shrinking into Garrett's shadow. Her eyes squeeze shut. She waits for the sound of gunfire, the impact of bullets, the end. Through the smoke, a voice cuts clear and sharp. Hold fire. I said hold. Footsteps approach. Nathan Caldwell emerges from the haze, tall gray, at the temples, a scar running down the left side of his jaw. The SWAT commander's eyes find Garrett's face, and something complicated moves behind them. Recognition, relief, and something deeper, the acknowledgement of an old debt about to be balanced. Nathan's hand rises to his temple. The salute is crisp, perfect, the gesture of a subordinate recognizing a superior officer even when neither of them wears a uniform anymore. "Captain Cole, I thought you were dead." Garrett's arms slowly lower. His rifle hangs at his side muzzle pointed at the floor. When he returns the salute, his hand is steady. Still breathing Caldwell, still saving people who don't know they need saving. The corridor beyond the conference room fills with the organized chaos of a successful breach. SWAT operators secure positions at every entrance, their weapons systematically clearing the space while medics move toward the civilians huddled in the center of the room. Nathan stands before Garrett like a man seeing a resurrection. "When I got your message, I thought it was a trick, someone who'd gotten hold of your number. It wasn't, clearly." Nathan's eyes move across the room, taking in the scene. His gaze returns to Garrett. "You want to tell me what the hell happened here?" Garrett provides the briefing in terse, precise sentences. The lock changes, the camera delays, the assault team, Corbin Shaw's involvement and his connection to Castellano. The fights, the escapes, the route through the building's hidden geography. He presents it like an after-action report, stripped of emotion, focused on facts. When he finishes, Nathan is quiet for a long moment. "Then you took down how many? 6 personally? 3 more decided they weren't getting paid enough to die. With what resources? Whatever I could find." Nathan laughs, a short, sharp sound that holds more wonder than humor. 3 years behind a security desk, and you haven't lost a step." "I've lost several steps. I just made sure they didn't matter tonight." The medics have reached Vivian now. One of them is checking Madeline, shining a light in her eyes, asking gentle questions designed to assess trauma without deepening it. The girl responds in monosyllables, her hand never leaving her mother's grip. Vivian's attention, though, remains fixed on the 2 men speaking nearby. She's listening to every word, assembling pieces of a puzzle that's been forming since the moment Garrett burst through the conference room door. Delta Force, commander, multiple confirmed combatants. A salute from a SWAT team leader. She rises from the medic's examination, ignoring protests, and approaches the 2 men. "Captain Cole," she uses the rank deliberately, watching his reaction. "That's what he called you." Garrett meets her gaze. "It's not a title I've used in years." "But you earned it." "I did." Delta Force, the same Delta Force that conducts counterterrorism operations across the globe. "It's just a job," or it was. "Just about." She takes another step closer. "For the past 2 years, you've been fixing my air conditioning and walking security patrols. You've been invisible." That was the point. Why would someone with your background choose to disappear into a job like that? Garrett is silent for a moment. The answer to her question lives in places he doesn't visit often. Graves and memories, and the particular weight of a folded flag presented at a funeral. But she's earned the truth, or at least part of it. "Because I have a daughter, and daughters need fathers who come home every night, who are there when they wake up from nightmares, who can attend school plays and help with homework and just be present. The job I had before, it didn't allow for that, so I chose a different job." Vivian absorbs this. The anger in her face softens, replaced by something more complex. Recognition, perhaps. Understanding. 4 years ago, she says quietly, when James died, the officer who came to tell me that was you, wasn't it? Garrett doesn't answer. He doesn't need to. "I remember your voice, calm but threaded with something that might have been grief. You told me I wasn't alone. You weren't. You aren't." The moment stretches between them, fragile and raw. 2 people who lost their spouses, who rebuilt their lives around the absences, who found themselves connected by tragedy and coincidence in a night of violence neither asked for. Madeline's voice breaks the silence, small, exhausted, but somehow stronger than before. "Mommy, can we go home now?" Vivian blinks, returning to the present. She looks down at her daughter, and when she speaks, her voice is steady. "Yes, sweetheart, we can go home." Nathan steps in all business again. "We'll need statements from everyone, but that can wait until morning. I'll have officers escort you to a secure location." As Vivian moves to rejoin her daughter, she pauses beside Garrett. Her hand touches his arm, brief, deliberate. "Thank you for tonight and for 4 years ago. He nods, accepting the gratitude without commentary. Some things don't require response. The building slowly empties. SWAT teams clear floor by floor, finding scattered remnants of Castellano's operation. Abandoned equipment, unconscious operatives secured by zip ties, evidence that will feed federal prosecutions for months to come. Garrett remains on the 27th floor as the others are escorted out. He watches through the window as Vivian and Madeline emerge from the building's entrance, surrounded by officers heading toward a waiting SUV. Nathan joins him at the window. For a while, neither speaks. Then Nathan breaks the silence. "You could come back, you know, not to the unit, but to something, consultant work, training. I have a job, fixing air conditioners, and checking locks and walking patrols." Garrett's voice carries something that might be humor, might be resignation. "It's not glamorous, but it lets me be home when Audrey needs me. That's worth more than anything a consulting contract could pay." Nathan nods slowly. He understands. He has children of his own, grandchildren now, and he's made his own calculations about the cost of service. The offer stands whenever you're ready. "I appreciate it." They shake hands, the grip firm, carrying years of shared history. Then Nathan moves toward the door, pausing at the threshold. "One more thing. The number you used, don't lose it. Some connections shouldn't be cut even when we think we need to disappear." Garrett doesn't respond, but he reaches into his pocket, feeling the weight of the old Nokia, and knows he won't be discarding it anytime soon. Alone in the conference room, he surveys the wreckage of the evening. Overturned chairs, scattered papers, Madeline's crayons still lying where they fell, bright spots of color against the neutral carpet. He picks up one of the drawings, two figures, one tall and one small, holding hands beneath a yellow sun. The paper is crumpled, stained with what might be tears, but the image remains clear. A child's vision of safety, of connection, of home. He folds the drawing carefully and places it in his pocket next to the phone. Then he heads for the stairs. Somewhere across the city, Audrey is sleeping at Mrs. Whitmore's apartment, unaware of everything that happened tonight. In a few hours, she'll wake up and he'll be there, and they'll share breakfast and discuss homework and pretend that the world is exactly as safe as a 7-year-old needs it to be. That's the promise he made when he left the service. That's the promise he keeps every day. The building releases him into the pre-dawn darkness. Police lights still strobe across the plaza, and officers still guard the perimeter, but the crisis is over. The threat is contained. Another night survived. Garrett walks past the cordon, his footsteps steady on the concrete, his breath fogging in the cold December air. Behind him, Ashford Technologies Tower rises against the sky, its windows dark, its secrets exposed. Ahead of him, the city waits, indifferent and eternal. And in his pocket, next to a child's drawing, in an ancient phone, his hand curls around the truth he discovered tonight. Some ghosts can't stay buried. Some skills can't be forgotten. And some missions never really end. They just change form. The news cycles through the Ashford Technologies incident with predictable hunger consuming every detail before moving on to the next catastrophe. Headlines blare for a week. Tech CEO survives hostage crisis. CFO arrested in elaborate extortion scheme. Mysterious security guard credited with saving lives, and then fade into the archive of yesterday's emergencies. The public memory is short. The private scars run deeper. Corbin Shaw pleads guilty to conspiracy, extortion, and reckless endangerment. The federal prosecutor offers a deal, 8 years instead of 25, in exchange for everything Shaw knows about the Castellano organization's financial networks. He takes it without hesitation. His wife, Margaret, sits in the gallery, her face a mask of devastation that will take years to reconstruct. Pamela Crane receives 4 years for her role as accomplice and inside operative. On the stand, she maintains the composed facade that served her so well as an executive assistant, but something in her eyes has gone hollow. The romance she believed in was as manufactured as her position in Vivian's office. Dominic Reeves faces federal charges that will keep him in prison until he's an old man. He doesn't fight the charges. Whatever he was looking for in that generator room, redemption, revenge, acknowledgement from the man who destroyed his military career, he didn't find it. The fight has gone out of him. Marcus Yates cooperates so thoroughly with the FBI that his sentence is reduced to time served plus probation. He disappears into witness protection, his testimony helping to unravel financial threads that lead to Castellano operations across 3 states. Through all of this, Garrett Cole remains invisible. His name appears nowhere in the official reports. Nathan Caldwell, honoring an unspoken agreement, attributes the civilian rescue to building security personnel without further specification. The media, hungry for a hero to profile, finds nothing but dead ends. Vivian Ashford holds a press conference 2 days after the incident. When a reporter asks about the security guard who saved her life, she pauses. Her eyes find a point somewhere beyond the assembled cameras. There are people in this world who do extraordinary things without seeking recognition, who protect others simply because protection is needed, who choose every day to be present for the people who depend on them, rather than chasing glory or advancement. The person who helped us that night is one of those people. And the best way I can honor what he did is to respect his choice to remain anonymous. The first call comes 3 weeks after the incident. Vivian's personal cell rings at 7 p.m. on a Saturday, displaying a number she doesn't recognize. The voice on the other end is familiar, low calm, carrying an undercurrent of careful restraint. "Ms. Ashford, I hope I'm not disturbing you." "Mr. Cole." She's surprised by the warmth that floods her chest at the sound of his voice. "I wasn't expecting to hear from you. I wanted to check in, make sure you and Madeline are recovering. We're managing. Therapy helps. Madeline has nightmares sometimes, but they're getting less frequent." The calls become a pattern. Every Saturday evening her phone rings and his voice is on the other end. Sometimes they talk for 10 minutes, sometimes for 2 hours. The conversations deepen, gradually moving from surface pleasantries to genuine exchange. She tells him about the pressures of rebuilding after the scandal. He tells her about the challenges of raising a daughter alone. One evening, 6 weeks after the incident, she makes a proposal. "Since the incident, we've been reassessing our security infrastructure. The board has approved the creation of a new position, Director of Security Operations. Significant salary, full benefits, equity stake in the company. I want to offer it to you." The silence stretches. She can almost hear him thinking, "That's generous. It's deserved." "Ms. Ashford." "Vivian, we've been talking for 2 months. I think you can call me Vivian." "Vivian." Her name and his voice does something unexpected to her pulse. "I appreciate the offer, but I have to decline." "Can I ask why, Will?" "Because of Audrey. Because I made a choice when I left the service about what kind of father I wanted to be. A job like the one you're describing, it would pull me back into a world I deliberately walked away from. Late nights crisis management, the constant vigilance that comes with protecting high-value targets. I'd become the job again. And Audrey would become the thing I fit in around the edges. You could have boundaries, limit your hours. I spent 15 years learning that boundaries don't exist in security work. Not real ones. There's always another threat, another vulnerability, another crisis that demands immediate attention. The job expands to fill whatever space you give it, and the space it fills first is the space that belongs to the people you love. Vivian wants to argue, but something in his voice tells her this isn't a negotiation. This is a line he drew long ago in the aftermath of loss she's only beginning to understand. "Your wife, Rachel, what happened to her?" "She was military, medical corps. 3 years ago, she was part of a support team for a special operations mission. The convoy was ambushed. She didn't survive." "I'm sorry." "So was I. Still am, some days." His breath carries the texture of old grief. "We were separated when it happened. Not divorced, just apart. I was deployed more often than I was home. She was trying to balance a career with raising a daughter whose father was never there. The distance grew until we couldn't find our way back to each other. And then she was gone, and all the things I planned to say, all the ways I was going to fix what was broken, none of it mattered anymore. After she died, I promised myself I'd be different, that Audrey would have a father who was present. Not just physically, actually present. The kind of father who knows her friends' names, who helps with homework, who's there when she wakes up from nightmares. That promise is the most important thing I've ever made. And if I take your offer, I'll break it. So you'd rather fix air conditioners and walk security patrols. I'd rather be available. The title doesn't matter. The paycheck doesn't matter. What matters is that Audrey knows, really knows in her bones, that her father will always come home. Vivian thinks of Madeline, of the way her daughter clutches her hand in crowds now, of the nightmares that still occasionally pierce her sleep. I understand. The offer stands, though. If you ever change your mind, I won't, but thank you. 2 weeks later, she makes a different proposal. Madeline has been asking about your daughter, about Audrey. Apparently, the silent steps game you taught her has become a favorite. She plays it with her therapist now. Audrey mentioned wanting to meet her too. She's been drawing pictures, two girls playing together. I thought maybe they could meet, properly, in a setting that isn't a corporate high-rise under a sold. A pause, then with something that might be a smile in his voice. What did you have in mind? Grant Park, Saturday afternoon. There's a playground near the Buckingham Fountain that Madeline loves. We could bring the girls, let them play. Get coffee. That sounds like a family outing. It sounds like two single parents letting their children socialize. Unless you object to the framing. I don't object. Saturday, 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock. Grant Park in late March carries the tentative promise of spring. The trees are just beginning to bud their branches, decorated with the earliest hints of green. The lake stretches gray and restless beyond the promenade, and the Buckingham Fountain, dormant during winter, prepares for its seasonal awakening. The playground is busy with families taking advantage of the warming weather. Vivian arrives first with Madeline, who immediately spots the swings and tugs toward them. 5 minutes later, a man approaches from the park's western path. He's taller than she remembered his civilian clothes, transforming him from the uniformed figure she first encountered. Jeans, a plain gray jacket, practical boots. At his side, holding his hand, a girl with brown hair and eyes the color of winter sky. Madeline sees them coming and freezes mid-swing. That's him, the man who helped us. Yes, sweetheart, that's Mr. Cole and his daughter Audrey. Garrett stops a few feet away. His eyes meet Vivian's and something passes between them. Acknowledgement, anticipation, the charged awareness of two people standing at a threshold. Ms. Ashford. Mr. Cole. But she's smiling as she says it, undermining the formality. Or should we try first names, given the circumstances? Vivian. He says it carefully, like he's testing the weight. This is Audrey. The transition happens with the easy grace that only children possess. Within moments, the two girls are running toward the swing set, their initial hesitation dissolved by the gravitational pull of potential friendship. Madeline's laughter, a sound Vivian has heard too rarely in recent months, floats back on the wind. Garrett watches them go. She seems better. She is. It's slow, but she's healing. Vivian gestures toward a nearby bench. Coffee? She's brought a thermos. Good coffee, not the thin institutional kind, and 2 cups. They sit on the bench, maintaining a careful distance, their attention ostensibly on the children, but their awareness fixed on each other. I've been thinking about what you said, about choosing presence over career. Vivian wraps her hands around her cup. I've spent the last 10 years building something. The company, the reputation, the success. And I told myself it was for Madeline, for her future, her security. But watching her these past months, seeing what she needs most. What does she need most? Me, just me. Not the CEO, not the business mogul, just her mother, present and available and focused on her. Vivian shakes her head. I don't know how to do that. I've forgotten if I ever knew. You know, you just haven't given yourself permission. Is that what you did? Gave yourself permission. I gave myself no other choice. When Rachel died, I looked at Audrey. She was 4, terrified, clinging to me like I was the only solid thing in a dissolving world, and I knew I couldn't be half a father anymore. Half would break her, so I became whole, or as close to whole as I could manage. And you don't regret it. The career you walked away from, the recognition, the purpose. Garrett is quiet for a moment. The wind picks up, carrying the smell of lake water and warming earth. In the distance, the girls have abandoned the swings and are now exploring the climbing structure, their movements synchronized in the way of children who've decided to become friends. There's a moment, every evening around 6 o'clock. Audrey finishes her homework, and we have dinner together, and she tells me about her day. The small things, who she played with at recess, what she learned in science class, the particular injustice of having to eat vegetables. And while she's talking, I watch her face, and I think this is why. This is worth everything I gave up. Not the quiet life itself, but what the quiet life allows. The chance to really see her, to really know her, to be there for the moments that matters, instead of always being somewhere else, doing something else, being someone else. Vivian absorbs this. The weight of her own choices presses against her, the missed bedtimes, the delegated school pickups, the way Madeline's face sometimes goes uncertain when she asks if mommy will be home for dinner. I don't know if I can do what you did. Walk away from everything. You don't have to walk away. You just have to be more careful about what you walk toward. He turns to look at her, and something in his expression makes her breath catch. The people who matter most are often the ones we don't see, not because they're invisible, but because we're looking past them at something else. Don't let Madeline become one of those people. On the playground, Audrey and Madeline have reached the top of the climbing structure. They're sitting together, legs dangling, heads bent in conversation. They like each other, Vivian observes. Seems that way. Madeline doesn't make friends easily. Since James died, she's been careful, like she's afraid to get attached to anyone who might disappear. Audrey's the same. She watches people for a long time before she decides to let them in. Teachers say she's reserved. I say she's just learned that not everyone deserves her trust. But she trusted Madeline. Kids know things. They recognize each other, the ones who've been through something. There's a shorthand between them that adults can't fake. Vivian watches the two girls, their laughter carrying across the playground. Something in her chest loosens a knot she didn't know she'd been carrying. I'd like to do this again, if you're willing. The girls, I mean, and us. Whatever this is. Whatever this is, Garrett repeats. The corner of his mouth lifts in something that's almost a smile. I'd like that too. The weeks that follow establish a new rhythm. Saturday afternoons at the park become a fixture, the four of them gathering like a family that's still learning its shape. The girls grow inseparable, their bond deepening with each shared adventure. Vivian and Garrett watch from benches, their conversations expanding like ripples from a dropped stone. They don't rush. There are no dramatic declarations, no sudden escalations. They're both too scarred for that, too aware of how quickly the world can shift beneath your feet. Instead, they build something slowly, carefully, like people reconstructing a house they want to last. One evening in mid-April, after the girls have exhausted themselves on the playground and fallen asleep in the back of Vivian's SUV, Garrett turns to her on the bench they've claimed as their own. I've been thinking about something. That sounds ominous. Serious maybe, not ominous. He pauses, gathering words. 3 months ago, you were a name on a door I walked past every night. Someone I saw but didn't see. And now I'm not sure what we are. Friends maybe, something more than that maybe. But whatever it is, I want you to know I'm not looking for rescue. I don't need saving. My life is small, but it's complete. Vivian hears what he's not saying. The door is open, but she has to choose to walk through it. I'm not looking for rescue either. I've spent 4 years proving I can survive on my own. I don't need a partner to be whole. She turns to face him, and in the fading light, his features are both familiar and newly seen. But I'm starting to think that being whole isn't the same as being happy. And when I'm with you, when we're here like this, I feel something I haven't felt in a long time. What's that possibility? The word hangs between them, fragile and enormous. Garrett reaches out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and takes her hand. I spent 3 years becoming invisible, learning to disappear into backgrounds, to be overlooked. And I thought that was what I wanted. Safety through anonymity, peace through absence. And now I think I was hiding from the world, from the past, from the possibility of losing something again. His grip tightens slightly. But you see me. Despite everything, the uniform, the grom, the deliberate invisibility, you see me. And that terrifies me. And it's also the most alive I've felt since Rachel died. Vivian squeezes his hand. The connection is simple, human, profound in its ordinariness. I don't need you to be visible to the world. I just need you to be visible to me and to Madeline. That's enough. And what about us? What happens when the park visits aren't enough anymore? I don't know. I don't have a 5-year plan for this. For the first time in my adult life, I'm willing to figure it out as I go. That's either very brave or very foolish. Probably both. He smiles, then a real smile, unguarded in a way she's never seen from him. It transforms his face, softening the hard edges, revealing the man beneath the soldier, beneath the maintenance worker. I'm willing to be foolish with you. The kiss happens naturally, without preamble or hesitation. It's brief questioning, a first draft of something they'll revise and expand in the days to come. When they pull apart, Vivian is smiling too. In the SUV, Madeline stirs her voice muzzy with sleep. Mommy, are we going home? Soon, sweetheart. Is Audrey coming to my birthday? Vivian looks at Garrett. He nods. Yes, baby. Audrey is coming to your birthday. Madeline's face splits into a sleepy grin. Good. She's my best friend now. In the seat beside her, Audrey equally drowsy murmurs agreement. Best friends. 2 months later, on a Saturday evening in June, Vivian's phone buzzes with a text from Garrett. Audrey wants to know when we can see you again. Also, she drew you a picture. Vivian types back, tonight dinner at my place. Madeline is making decorations for something she won't tell me what. The response comes immediately. We'll be there at 6. They arrive exactly on time. Audrey bursts through the door with the energy of a 7-year-old who's been counting minutes clutching a rolled piece of paper that she presents to Vivian with ceremonial gravity. The drawing shows 4 figures standing together beneath a yellow sun. Too tall, too small. Their hands are connected, forming a chain across the paper. Above them, in careful purple letters, Audrey has written, family. Vivian's throat tightens. She kneels to Audrey's level, holding the drawing like the precious thing it is. This is beautiful, sweetheart. Did you make this for me? For all of us. Audrey's eyes are bright with hope. Madeline said I could be her sister someday. Is that true? Vivian looks up at Garrett, who's standing in the doorway with an expression she can't quite read, something between anxiety and hope. What do you think, Dad? Audrey presses. Can Madeline be my sister? Garrett crouches beside his daughter. That's a big question, sweetheart. It would take a lot of things to happen. What kind of things? The kind of things that grow slowly, like a garden. You plant seeds and you water them and you wait. And if you're lucky, something beautiful grows. But you like Vivian, right? And she likes you. I do like her. Very much. And she makes you smile. You don't used to smile very much, but now you do. Garrett's laugh is soft, surprised. You notice a lot. I'm observant. You taught me that. Vivian rises, still holding the drawing. Audrey, would you like to go help Madeline with her decorations? She's in the living room. The girl nods, sensing that grown-up conversation is about to happen, and scampers off. The door closes behind her, leaving Garrett and Vivian alone in the foyer. Kids, Garrett says, they have a way of skipping past all the careful steps. They know what they want. They don't see any reason to pretend otherwise. Is that what we've been doing? Pretending? Vivian steps closer. I've been scared. For months now, I've been telling myself we're just friends, just 2 single parents helping each other. Because the alternative means being vulnerable again, means opening myself to the possibility of losing someone again. And now I'm tired of being scared. She takes his hand, threads her fingers through his. Audrey asked if Madeline could be her sister. And my very first thought was, yes, I want that. I want mornings where we're all together and evenings where we're all together and everything in between. Garrett is quiet for a long moment. His thumb traces circles on her palm. I don't need to be seen by the world. I learned that a long time ago. But I need to be seen by the people who matter. And Vivian, you matter. Madeline matters. What we're building here matters. I just need to know that you understand what you're getting. A man with a complicated past, a daughter who's already lost too much of life that will never be glamorous or high profile. I understand. And you still want this. I still want this. He pulls her closer, and when they kiss this time, it isn't questioning. It's an answer, a promise, a beginning. From the living room, Madeline's voice carries Audrey. Help me with the banner. It's for them. They pull apart, laughing, and walk together toward the sound of their daughters' voices. The living room has been transformed. Streamers hang from every available surface. Balloons cluster in corners. And stretched across the fireplace, painted in bright colors, on a long sheet of paper, a banner reads, Welcome to our family. Audrey and Madeline stand beneath it, grinning with the pride of conspirators whose plan has come together. Surprise, they shout in unison. Vivian looks at Garrett. Garrett looks at Vivian. And for a moment, neither can speak. Then Garrett kneels, opening his arms to both girls who rush into them with joyful abandon. Did we surprise you? Audrey asks, her face buried against his shoulder. You did, sweetheart. You really did. Vivian joins them, lowering herself to the floor, wrapping her arms around all three. The tangle of bodies feels awkward and perfect, like the first attempt at something that will become natural with practice. "This is what I want," Madeline whispers. "This, forever." "Me too," Audrey agrees. Garrett meets Vivian's eyes over the girls' heads. In them, she sees everything she's been afraid to hope for, not just survival, not just recovery, but the possibility of something new, something whole. "Forever is a long time," he says. "Let's start with tonight." Later, after the girls are asleep, they sit together on Vivian's back porch, watching the city lights glitter against the dark. "Tell me something," Vivian says. "Something you've never told anyone." Garrett thinks for a long moment. "After Rachel died, I used to lie awake at night, bargaining with God. I'd promise anything, my career, my health, my life, if I could just have her back. One more day, just long enough to say the things I never said. What things? That I was sorry for all the times I chose the job over her, for being so focused on saving the world that I forgot to save my marriage." His voice catches. "She died thinking I didn't love her enough, and she was right. I didn't love her enough to change. Not until it was too late." Vivian takes his hand, holding it tight. "You've changed now. I've tried to. Every day I've tried to be the kind of man who prioritizes the people in front of him instead of the mission in the distance. But I still fail sometimes. That's called being human. Is it? Sometimes it feels like being broken. Maybe we're all broken. Maybe the point isn't to fix ourselves, but to find people who fit our jagged edges." He turns to look at her. "Is that what you think we are, jagged edges that fit? I think we're two people who've lost too much to pretend that life is predictable. I think we're two parents trying to raise our daughters in a world that doesn't make sense. And I think we might be the beginning of something, if we're brave enough to let it grow." Brave or foolish? Both, always both. He leans in, presses his forehead to hers. They stay like that for a long moment, breathing together. "I want to try," he finally says. "I want to see what we become, even if it's terrifying, even if it breaks at all my careful plans. Then we'll try together." The night deepens around them. Inside, their daughters sleep. And somewhere in the distance, the city continues its endless motion, indifferent to the small miracle happening on this porch. But miracles don't need the world's attention to be real. Sometimes they happen in quiet places between quiet people, one careful step at a time. The next morning, Garrett wakes early, habit impossible to break, and finds Vivian already in the kitchen, making coffee. The sunlight catches her hair, and she looks different than she did in the office tower, different than she did on the news broadcasts. She looks like home. "The girls are still sleeping," she says. "I thought we could have a few minutes before the chaos starts." He crosses to her, wraps his arms around her from behind. It's the first time he's allowed himself this kind of casual intimacy, and the naturalness of it surprises him. "What happens now?" he asks. "Now coffee, then breakfast, then whatever Saturday brings." "I meant bigger picture." "I know what you meant." She turns in his arms, facing him. "The bigger picture is this: we take it one day at a time. We don't rush, we don't force. We let the girls set the pace because they're the ones who matter most. And when things get hard, because they will, we face them together instead of alone." That sounds like a plan. It sounds like the absence of a plan, which is terrifying for someone like me. "Welcome to my world." She laughs, and the sound fills the kitchen, and somewhere upstairs, a child's voice calls out, "Is breakfast ready?" The chaos of a shared morning begins. Pancakes and arguments about syrup, spilled juice and negotiations about screen time. The ordinary symphony of a family finding its rhythm. And in the middle of it all, Garrett catches Vivian's eye across the crowded kitchen table, and something passes between them that doesn't need words. This is what he chose when he walked away from the service. This is what he found when he stopped running. This is what he'll protect, not with guns and tactics and the skills of his former life, but with presence, with attention, with the simple commitment to being here fully, here for however long he's given. The world outside will continue to spin, dangerous and unpredictable. Threats will emerge and fade. The past will occasionally reach out with cold fingers, reminding him of who he used to be. But in this kitchen with these people, he is exactly who he needs to be. A father, a partner, A man who finally understands that the most important people are the ones sitting at his table, and the only mission that matters is making sure they know they're loved. That's enough. It's more than enough. It's everything.